I'd like to welcome a very familiar face and voice of Dermot, who is from the Republic of Ireland, and he has a career in which is unrelated to bridge, but he's now full-time, knee-deep in bridge at many levels, including teaching. Today, he's here to talk to us about accreditation, just to explain that in some countries, that's called certification. So accreditation and certification mean the same thing, and we will learn of the approach at the CBAI.
Thank you very much indeed, Shireen. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, or good evening, depending where you're listening in from. I'm conscious that you'll see in a second that the CBAI, the Irish Federation, is a relatively small one, and there will be people in the audience who teach perhaps or are involved in teaching in much bigger federations where there'll be more money to spend, more resources, more time to give, and so on. But in conversation with Shireen, she felt that our model, which I must say works very well for us, was one that might be useful for some of the smaller federations to learn about and to hear from. So thank you very much to Shireen and to Sam for the invitation to address you today. This, as Shireen said, is a subject very close to my heart. I gave up bridge teaching, unfortunately, when I went back to full-time employment a couple of years ago. But for the prior 10 or 15 years, I taught at a variety of levels and enjoyed every minute of it. And whenever I introduce our new teachers program, in other words, whenever I meet the candidates for the first time, I always make the point to them that they and their students are the future of bridge, because there are very few people that can teach themselves bridge. We all know probably one or two people that taught themselves bridge, but the vast majority of bridge players were taught by bridge teachers. And unfortunately, the bridge demographic being what it is, if we're not constantly getting new students in, then the number of bridge players across Ireland and across the world will be falling. I'll share my screen with you now and open up some slides. Is that okay? Yep, good. Okay. So just a word of introduction, first of all, about the CBAI. It was founded in 1932, so we're 10 years or so away from our centenary. We've all kinds of interesting events planned, and I hope to see at least some of you over in Ireland to share the centenary with us at that time. It's the regulatory body for bridge in the Republic of Ireland, so the 26 counties that make up the Republic of Ireland. It is a small federation and a small organisation, so we have a small paid staff, the equivalent of approximately 4 full-time employees, and we have a small office in suburban Dublin as part of or an adjunct to a bridge playing centre. And our primary responsibilities include the promotion, the development and the regulation of bridge, the running of competitions, the management of our grading system, which is called master pointing, and then obviously teaching, tournament directing and junior bridge. And our structure is based around a number of affiliated clubs, of which there are approximately 500 countrywide. The CBI's teaching program was first developed around 1995, so the middle 1990s. So it's been on the go for some time. It was the brainchild originally of a former CBI president and teacher called Seamus Dowling, who's also written a very well-known book on the history of bridge in Ireland. So some of you may be familiar with Seamus and with his work, and we owe him a great debt of gratitude. Obviously, there have been a number of adjustments since then. A lot of things have changed since the mid-1990s, but the core of it has not changed, which is the fact that it is run by a committee of volunteers, all of whom are experienced bridge teachers with substantial input from the CBI head office. So one of our staff members spends approximately 15 to 20% of her time exclusively on this topic, and I'm also very involved as well. I sit on all the teaching committee meetings, attend their new seminars and so on when I can, and like to stay in close touch with what it is they're doing and why. And the objective of the accreditation system is to provide a quality service to teachers and to students at minimal cost, and at minimal cost to both the students and the teachers and also to the association. So our objective is, if you like, that this should be run as well as possible, but with as little cost as possible. So what does the accreditation program involve? So the first thing is that any CBI member who has been playing bridge for more than 5 years can apply. And I was struck by some of the previous speakers saying that, you know, younger teachers often fare better with students than more experienced ones. So we certainly don't try to dissuade anybody from teaching bridge if that's what they want to do. But we do put 2 hurdles in front of them to make sure they're competent to do that before we let them loose and before we give them any accreditation. The first hurdle is a bridge competency test. So the candidate does that locally in their own locality under supervision by somebody that is volunteered to do that for us. The test consists of 2 papers. There's a card play paper and a bidding theory paper. Between the 2, with a little break, it takes 3 hours altogether. And the candidates must pass both papers. The required pass rate is 70%. So it's not by any means a cakewalk. And as I'll indicate in a few minutes, we do have people that fall at this hurdle every time we run this course. The second hurdle then is a teaching competency test. So by passing the first test, they have indicated or satisfied us that their bridge knowledge is sufficiently good to allow them to teach bridge to beginners or thereafter. And the second then is a teaching competency test to make sure that their teaching skills are up to what's required. And this is undertaken centrally. So they all come together as part of what we call a new teachers assessment weekend. The cost of that weekend is 150 euros to the students, including light meals over both days. We typically run, pre-COVID, we ran 2 of these a year, but obviously there were none for the 2.5 years of COVID. So since COVID, the teaching committee has come out of the blocks firing, where we have another assessment, new teachers assessment weekend lined up for November, and that will be our 6th in the last 20 months. So we're very conscious that we've had a shortfall of teachers, if you like, that other teachers have not come back, existing teachers have not come back after COVID. So we need as many new teachers as possible. So this will be our 6th in the last 18 or 20 months. Typically, the numbers attending are somewhere between 10 and 16. You need about 10 to make a critical mass, and any more than 16, it gets too big. And at that weekend, the teaching committee on the first day imparts information and ideas and experience to the candidates, and it inculcates a lot of the material that other speakers have spoken about today. So passion and enthusiasm, about visualizing yourself as the student's friend, or the phrase we like to use is the student's ally in learning about bridge. Bridge is a difficult game to learn, and they need you to be on their side and to help them, to give examples of active listening, of interacting with students at the table, and so on. And the candidates are tasked with delivering a sample class to an audience of their peers and our assessors. And again, they must pass that test before they can be accredited as a teacher. Sorry, I just went on one there. So typically, as I said, in a typical cycle, some candidates fail in each element of this test, which proves to us, I think, that it's working. If everybody passed, probably the bar is too low. The candidates that fail the card play and the bidding test is found to be relatively simple, I think, by most of them. It's the card play test that separates the wheat from the chaff. And I suspect that's probably true of all of us as bridge players. We all like to spend more time on bidding, and we read books on bidding, but books on card play, we tend to fall asleep after page 2 or page 5. So typically the candidates even the good ones, tend to score more in the bidding test than they do in the card play test. Where they fail in the teaching assessment, in my experience, and I think my colleagues would agree, it is because of lack of preparation. They think they understand this topic, opening one no trump or responding to one no trump, whatever it is. They feel that they can rock up and explain that without putting in the pre-work that we all know as teachers, any of us that have taught know as teachers, is essential to doing that. And it's lack of preparation that is the main stumbling block, I think, for the majority. We do have a handful that, even though they have listened to the sessions on the previous day, haven't taken them on board. So we one gentleman who stood with his back turned to his class, looking at his whiteboard throughout the course of his presentation. So some of those are relatively easily remedied, but I'm afraid always there will be some people who are not naturally teachers, for whom teaching will not naturally be a skill that they can adapt. But as I say, people do fail in both assessments. They're always invited to repeat if they wish to do so. You can repeat the bidding and play test at any time you want, and you can repeat the teaching assessment at the next time or any subsequent time we have a teaching assessment centre. And lots of people who fail once subsequently go on and qualify and become accredited teachers. So what are the benefits of the accreditation programme? Well, first of all, for the CBAI, it means that we can know reasonably confidently that we have quality teachers wherever we send out teachers, and that their method of teaching is standardized to some degree, although I don't want to over standardize things because, again, as many speakers have said previously, different teachers have different strengths. Some we teach 4 in a week, as I'll show you in a second, but some teachers may prefer, because of the locality they live in, to teach 5 and strong. If they want to do that, then that's fine, subject to us knowing that they can do it competently. It gives us a register of teachers that we can call upon for any assignments that we're offered, whether it be by clubs, by local authorities that are running night classes, by schools that are looking for a teacher or whatever. It allows us to generate, insofar as we can, nationwide coverage, and also to identify any teaching black spots. So if there are a lack of teachers in a particular area, that becomes clear to us and we can throw extra resources into that. And finally, and very importantly from our perspective, we want to try to link students to local clubs post classes. There is little point from the CBI's perspective of having new players that don't play in one of our local clubs. We certainly welcome all new players, but our primary focus is that they should join a club when they can. What are the benefits for the teachers? Well, first of all, they have evidence of their accreditation to provide to potential employers, be that clubs, local authorities, and also to their students. We also provide them with a comprehensive set of teaching materials, which I will go into in more detail a little bit later on. We support them in marketing and promoting their classes on our website and in our publications. I put publications in inverted commas because nowadays the vast majority of these are online rather than published in the old-fashioned method. And we do that mostly for no charge. There are a handful of publications for which we look for paid advertisements, but in the majority of cases, it's at no charge. So the quid pro quo, if you like, for the teacher is that once they accredit with the CBI and go through our program, we will promote and market their classes as often and as widely as we possibly can. They also have access to a network of teachers so that they can meet other teachers, periodically discuss ideas, get ideas in the same way as we've got ideas from a forum like this today. And then we also hold ongoing professional development seminars and so on. And the teachers also benefit from a discount on some critical teaching supplies that we sell. So again, benefits for the teachers in joining our program. And finally, and probably most importantly of all, what are the benefits for the students? Well, first of all, they have the knowledge that their teacher is certified by the regulatory body for Bridge in Ireland. And then secondly, if their teacher registers them with us, we provide them with an introductory CBI pack, which includes a sort of a welcome letter and an introduction to the CBI, acknowledgement of their teacher's accredited status, a diary, a basic bidding system, and some scoring system summaries, all paper-based. Some branded freebies like cards and pens and key rings and so on. And then finally, a description of the CBI's clubs and an exhortation to join one once they finish their classes. We find that not all teachers use this registration process, and the ones that don't seem to fall into two categories. Least worrisome from our perspective are the teachers that naturally have a club that they're going to feed these students into anyway, and they know this and they feel this is sort of an unnecessary step. I'd still prefer that they took it because it does allow us to do some marketing of the CBI and so on. But the more worrisome ones, and the ones we need to try to work harder on, are the teachers that are not as inclined to give their students onto classes. Their model seems to be they want students for life rather than people that are going to flee the nest and go out and play bridge in the local clubs. So these are the ones that we need to work hardest on. I mentioned the teaching materials, so we have two volumes of teaching manuals, which are available either digitally or in printed form, for a small cost. The contents are a complete recommended schedule of classes, detailed class notes for the teacher and for the students for each class, and then sample hands with explanations that they can use, quizzes, and so on. And these have been tweaked at various times throughout the course of the 20 odd years since they were introduced, maybe 30 years since they were introduced. And we like to feel that they are now sort of state of the art. And certainly the feedback is that all teachers find them very helpful. You're welcome to use your own notes if you wish to. We're not prescribing that you have to do things in a particular way, but if you want a starting point and some material to work on, here's where you'll find it. We use the same basic system as the EBU, which is week no trump, 4-card majors, and 3-week 2 openings. And this has been addressed on various occasions. And within our teaching committee, there's constantly a sort of demand to move towards probably the more modern top level standard of 5-card majors and strong no trump. But I suppose our feeling each time it has been raised is that the system works for us, it works for the EBU, and in particular, there's a vast amount of teaching material available within the British Isles and Ireland, which is mainly based around weak, no trump and four card majors. So we have felt at various times that it would not be worth reinventing the wheel and going some other way. We're currently finalizing another volume of material for improvers courses. So typically people who learned maybe 3 to 4 years ago have been playing reasonably actively since and want to take their game to the next level. If that's not a phrase that I can use, given that Andrew Robson has kind of trademarked it. And one issue that we're also working on, and one thing that has disappointed me actually, is more help for teachers who want to move online. A number of our teachers did move online, obviously, during COVID, and a number of them have stayed there. In our response, we have relied on the experts from that field, if you like, to try to train the rest of our teachers in that regard. And my preference would be that we would do more of that centrally and develop materials to allow a teacher who previously has taught face-to-face to move online without too much difficulty. But I say we haven't quite been able to devote the resources that we need to that for the moment. So in summary, as I said at the outset, the CBI has limited resources, so we're constrained in how we approach this. But this model has certainly worked very well for us, and I would commend it to any federation or any local organization that doesn't currently have an accreditation model or a certification model. It's certainly well worth the investment, and we have managed to keep the investment, as I said, reasonably small and within our control. We encourage our teachers very strongly, as I've stressed throughout, to link students to local clubs. Our current register contains more than 200 teachers. The majority of them are actively teaching currently, although some of them haven't made a call yet on whether they're going to come back post-COVID. And as of September 2023, we had more than 70 separate sets of classes listed on our website, which people looking to find bridge classes can use to locate somebody in their area that's teaching, or indeed somebody that's teaching online. Just one final point before I move on, just about how important teachers are within the scheme of things. So our national president makes an award every season to a nominated unsung hero or heroine of bridge. So the people that do the hard work that I suspect all of us in the audience understand is essential, and without which bridge wouldn't continue to thrive, without seeking any reward or glory for themselves. And this year's award went to one of our accredited teachers, a lady called Teresa O'Reilly, who has taught all over County Cavan, which is a county in the north, sort of mid-north of the Republic of Ireland, for almost 40 years, very often, I think almost always, free of charge to her students. And the nominations that she got made it clear that she was a very deserving winner. There's a little picture of her here receiving her award from our national president, that's Pat O'Mahony, on the right-hand side, and the chairman, John Paul Feeney, of her local county council on the left-hand side. And aside from rewarding Teresa and giving her friends and her family a night out to enjoy themselves, it was actually at a Bridge Congress. It also generated some much-needed publicity for us and for Bridge within the local area. But that, I hope, is a sign of just the kind of volunteerism that helps to keep Bridge alive in Ireland. So I'd like to finish just by commending Sam and Shireen and BAMSA and RealBridge. This, I gather, was an excellent conference. I wasn't able to attend yesterday because I had a much more important function. I was actually playing bridge somewhere, but some of my colleagues on the teaching committee attended and have already texted me with various ideas that have come up from the talks yesterday. So I'm looking forward to our next committee meeting, when hopefully we can find some new ideas to make our teaching program even better, even more relevant to our students, and hopefully even more successful. So as I say, thanks very much indeed for the conference. Thanks very much for the invitation, and I'm happy to take any questions now, if anybody has any.
Thank you, Dermot. That was fabulous. And you'll see in the chat, there's been lots of comments and lots of questions. I hope I'm managing to keep up with them. But as David Loeb has said, it's a very impressive accreditation process. So congratulations. That's great.
Thank you very much.
I shall work my way around the questions in somewhat random order, but hopefully get through them all. So Dragon's asked, how do you fund the marketing campaigns?
So they generally are done on sites and so on that are already funded. So our website, for example, there's no charge to participate on that. The other publications, we do receive paid adverts from hotels, other bodies like that have an interest in Bridge. So that allows us to make the publication. But moving online, with all of these publications now being online, the cost is very low.
Okay, great. And Shireen has asked, how has this evolved? Have you made changes since the first version? And if you did, why?
So I don't go back as far, I'm afraid, as the first version. So I'll do my best to give you a sort of potted history. So one major change that was made was it was much more extensive. I gather from those that did it the first time around, it was 6 weekends over a period of 3 months or something like that in the initial stages. That was found to be unrealistically unwieldy in today's world, where people don't have the time to devote that kind of thing. So we've had to work on streamlining it. The other thing that has happened, I think, significantly is that we have moved from the bridge competencies to the teaching competencies, if you like. Anne's presentation earlier on today, there's no point in being an expert at bridge if you're unable to communicate that expertise to the students that you're talking to, whether that be emotional intelligence or of the kind that she was talking about, which is a reasonably advanced level. But one of the things we did was we built a train the trainer program using an external firm which charges a small fee for their services as well. So there are clearly models of training, if you like, that you can adopt and sort of bring into the bridge environment. That wasn't there at the start. It was more self-developed, if you want to put it that way.
Okay. And another question has been, are the competency tests different for the level of course that the prospective teacher wants to conduct?
Not generally, but we do encourage people that want to teach anything other than beginners to talk to us before they start doing it. And again, the bridge community in Ireland is small, so we will exempt certain people from the course, from the bridge competency test. So if an international player said in the morning they wanted to take up teaching and wanted to do the course, we would probably exempt them from the course. I generally encourage them to do it anyway, because international players, it's been a long time since they played weak, no trump and 4-card majors, and they sometimes need to take their mind back to that. But the second part is an absolute essential. Nobody is exempted from that, because, as I say, even as an expert, that does not necessarily mean that you have the skills that you need to teach group students. So we do encourage people, if they want to teach anything other than beginners, to talk to us again, and we'll work with them on that topic.
Okay. And Maria asks whether you have an online community so that people can share experiences among the new teachers. And then she has a follow-up question as well.
No, not as yet, and that's one of the things I think we've been slower than I would have liked to move everything in online, if you like, to use the benefits of what an online platform would provide in terms of sharing ideas and so on. So that generally happens at the networking weekends, the continuous professional development weekends. That's the idea sharing platform up till now.
Okay, and she also asks, do you have any kind of follow-up on the teacher's performance later on?
It tends to be anecdotal. In my experience, if a teacher is not good, you generally hear about it reasonably quickly. And in fairness, also, if a teacher is good, you generally hear about it too. So it's a matter of, I think, keeping in touch with the students, keeping in touch with the bridge clubs, and finding out who's doing well and who isn't. Now, we don't have any sanction. I mean, other than a quiet word in the ear of somebody. If I'm hearing negative feedback about a teacher, we will have a word and say, listen, the students didn't seem pleased with the last class or whatever, but there's no formal, so that they can't be de-accredited, if you want to put it that way.
And can a teacher from another country do your course?
Yes, they'd be welcome to. And you brought me into a very tough political topic here. Is Northern Ireland another country to Ireland or not? Very recently, Helen Hall from Northern Ireland, Northern Ireland is regulated separately for some bridge purposes. Helen Hall from Northern Ireland did our course and enjoyed it and has given us great feedback. So we're hoping that people from Northern Ireland certainly will do it, because we have a shared interest, if you like, within the 32 counties of doing that. But if somebody else wants to do it, they're more than welcome to. At the moment, it's in person only, so they'd have to travel to wherever it's being held. But we would be happy, I'm sure, to take somebody if they'd like to. I obviously can't promise them accreditation in wherever their NBO is, because their NBO may have their own requirements in that regard. But yeah, if somebody from overseas wants to do it, they'd be more than welcome.
You won't refuse their money.
No, indeed not. Indeed not. I should have said also, we don't hold it always in Dublin. Dublin is obviously, the capital of Ireland and the capital of Bridge too, the biggest conurbation. But we generally try to move out to other areas whenever we can. And in particular, we've invited our Bridge in the CBI's run to regional bodies. We've invited our regional bodies as soon as they have demand for a teaching seminar. We will bring it to them. So if somebody rings me in the morning and says, listen, I have 15 or 16 candidates that want to do this, we will organise a trip to Cork, Galway, Limerick, Cavan, wherever it may be, and we will deliver the programme there. The geography is no problem.
Okay, and Ulrich asks, is there an objective standardised table of requirements for testing in the sample class?
Yes. So we work off a score sheet, and the assessors all get that in advance. And all the various issues carry a certain amount of weight, and again, the pass mark is 70% for that also.
And I noticed you said early on that Bridge is a difficult game to learn, and Bronya also said this. I just wondered, to what extent should we be upfront about the difficulty and challenge of Bridge when we're teaching new players?
I can only speak from my personal experience, so I think it's a balance. Sam, I think you need to be realistic about it, because if you set unrealistic expectations with your students, they may be disappointed. In my experience, I've found students overestimate the mathematical skill required. They think, oh, I need to be an actuary or whatever to learn Bridge. So I always try to reassure them on that. And one of our marketing materials says, if you can count to 10 or to 13, excuse me, you can learn to play Bridge. But I do think you need to make it clear that the two analogies I use are, number one, it's a game of logic, so you need to be able to work out problems logically if you're going to enjoy Bridge. And secondly, one of the problems with teaching it is we give you, so it builds by accretion, if you like to call it that, but until you've learned a certain amount of the elements, you can't really play a sensible game of Bridge randomly with 4 people. So the analogy that I use is that it's a bit like golf, in that there are different shots in golf, and until you learn to play all of them, you're never going to be able to play a full round of golf. But that doesn't mean you should focus exclusively on chipping or putting or driving or whatever it may be. You need to understand all the elements and the way that they sort of combine to make the game.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's a great answer, but I'm also interested in what the participants here think on that, because I've heard lots of different things around how much should we advertise the fact that it is a challenging and difficult game and it's a game for life, or how much should we be presenting it actually you can play within 10 minutes and you can get going and then you build levels. So I would be kind of interested, people can put their views on the chat in that one as to how much we should market it as a challenging game or not mention the difficulty of it. So please do invite you all to put your views in on that one, because I'm curious. I know people have very different views on that, some very strong, some somewhere in the middle. So, but anyway, thank you, Dermot. That was really interesting. Lots of things packed in there.